How's it going, Bob? Could do better. I did well in my job interview. Good for you. He gave instructions to need, but they couldn't make heads or tails of them. You can't do things at one time. It's out of the question. Do them one by one. Bob, don't disturb her. Mind your own business, he whispered. If he persists bothering her like that, she'll lose her temper. He was so childish that he could resist temptation. Stop making fuss. It really gets on my nerves, she shouted. There's no point in talking back to Nick. He's a dictator, so to speak. They are very polite in his presence, but actually they always talk about behind his back. You despise Nick, don't you? On the contrary, I look up to him. His constant insult aroused her anger. I'm fed up with just shuffling papers and pouring coffee. I made up my mind to quit. In reality, many people have difficulties making ends meet. How can you get by on 100,000 yen a month? Female clerks may well complain about their routines, which are not challenging at all. Thanks to fundamental restructuring, our surplus has swelled threefold. Many people today think of loyalty to a company as an absurd notion. I have to commute all the way from distant suburbs. I'm sick of it. I want to spend the rest of my life pursuing my ideals. After retirement, Teresa devoted herself to caring for orphans. For the sake of children in need, we cooperated to collect donations. The church named after a man who gave away some 2 billion yen. His autobiography was released today and sold out by noon. Ted, who is often referred to as Manga Integrity, is going to run for mayor. The candidate was disappointed by the outcome of the election. The municipal council should concentrate on more specific issues. This is the case of that those who live on a pension are forced to lead a hard life. We should have reversed this data. It's far from accurate. We tend to associate politicians with hypocrisy. They are primarily concerned with exploiting us, not with enhancing our living standards. But Obama's measures exerted a dominant influence on the Conservative Party, but now his power is diminishing. The spokesperson refused to make any comment, saying it's under investigation. The police said there's someone pulling strings behind the scenes. The executive entertained bureaucrat at Ryote, or exclusive Japanese restaurant, hoping in something in return. His secretary flatly denied leaking any confidential information. No one dared to contradict his or her employer for fear of being fired. He sacrificed his promising career to retain his dignity. I might evaluate looking myself and reconcile myself to my fate. He was about to commit suicide by swallowing poison and stopped when he thought better of it. The big rumor proved to be false. Nevertheless, some skepticism lingers on. A senior official is suspected of stealing bribes from the company. but there isn't sufficient evidence to arrest him. Jason, who was in charge of the project, was dismissed for corruption. To my knowledge, he had not involved in the fraud scheme. They found out the truth while examining a pile of relevant documents. During the trial, it came to light that they had been covering up illegal transactions for decades. The detective took down his testimony on the spot, word for word. For the first time in my life, I felt a pang of conscience, but there was no other way out. I was so haunted by a vivid nightmare I had last night. By and large, reporters don't hesitate to intrude on one's privacy. The author revised his manuscript over and over again. He is second to none is come to finding fault with others. On the whole, the editor are not sensitive to criticism. When a tabloid revealed that he was drug addicted, his reputation was all but ruined. They considered every aspect of the defense program and pointed out the numerous flaws. We will not tolerate anyone who engages in terrorism. The notorious rebel was ultimately captured and confined to jail. Troops were swiftly called in to put down the riot, which appeared to reason instead of resorting to violence. I suggest that we adapt flexible tactics for the moment. The armed forces succeeded in occupying the entire territory. Under the circumstances, the enemy had no choice but to surrender. They can't hold out any longer. Sooner or later, the hostages will be set free. Under the reign of tyranny, innocent people were deprived of their citizenship. Some soldiers were reluctant to obey the command. His regime was bound to collapse. The Allies condemned the invasion as a violation of UN resolutions. We cannot rule out the possibility that civil war break out in that country. The colony declared independence and became a republic. An immense monument was erected in honor of the noble patriot. He got down on his knees and prayed for the souls of the deceased. The Supreme Court is located near the Imperial Palace. The protest group protested against the ban of abortion. Senator Ford remained neutral in the bitter controversy. Ford has been in a difficult situation all week long. He is no longer capable of coping with it. There are some talks to be broadcast simultaneously throughout the world. Diplomatic dialogue helped put an end to the conflict. Johnson was appointed as a goodwill ambassador to foster mutual understanding between the two nations. The specialists predict international tension will build up. In my opinion, permanent peace is nothing but an illusion. Ethnic minorities struggle against prejudice, poverty, and oppression. We must make every effort to take away all discrimination. The individuals endured physical and mental pain. The amendment was rejected because it didn't take racial diversity into account. Needless to say, the refugees were longing for freedom. More. According to a survey, 3 in 5 people today are indifferent foreign affairs. What will become of the Japan-US relations if the security treaty expires? Unless Japan limits its unfair tariffs, the US will impose sanctions. Trade friction might arise between the two nations at any moment. Our top priority was to settle this dispute once and for all, so we are ready to meet them halfway. The federal budget was narrowly approved by Congress. He argues the administration must look for alternative sources of revenue. I also that the overwhelming majority are favored of the legislation. The cops are searching for clues to the brutal murder. The man is insane. He can't distinguish vice from virtue. The fingerprint left on the weapon correspond with the suspect. It took us all by surprise when the noted psychologist was accused of kidnapping. The jury's guilty verdict gave rise to a widespread debate. The man pleaded for mercy, but he was sentenced to 20 years in prison for his crime. The officer on duty perceived an elderly man coming up behind him. He captured the thief attempting to break into the house. The day before yesterday, he witnessed a weird incident in the wilderness. I became aware of someone staring at me from across the aisle, so I turned around, but there was no one in sight. She screamed out of horror, and someone took hold of her arm. Informed of her safety, he breathed a sigh of relief. The bullet penetrated his chest, leaving him in critical condition. At present, it is still uncertain whether the bullet done deliberately or by accident. The delicate fire burned down, leaving a heap of ashes. All of a sudden, the fireworks warehouse exploded, and it took 2 days to put out the blaze. Bomb went off in the 30-story building. More than 50 people are seriously wounded. A cargo vessel bound for Athens sank in the Mediterranean without a trace. The reckless man froze to death during the expedition to the Antarctic. The tragedy must be remembered so as not to be repeated. The exhibition offers profound insight into ancient civilization. Giotto is credited with solving the cheese of Italian Renaissance. Bob mounted the portrait in a fancy frame, but it was upside down. This magnificent cathedral dates back to the Middle Ages. The ancient religion inspired him to create splendid sculptures. They explored the desert in search of the buried treasure. The minimalist of acquiring the masterpiece, no matter how much it cost. Myths and legends should be handed down from generation to generation. The language is fluent in several Chinese dialects. The tribe worships its ancestors and speaks its own language, which is not familiar to us. The anthropologist says old customs still prevail in the province. The wicked witch cast an evil spell on the man and turned him into a bag. They proceeded along a steep path, which was the sole access to the border, when a big ape emerged from the cave. They got frightened, ran away. Believe it or not, I saw an alien, and then it vanished. Give me a break.